Here we go. All right, everybody. 25 years ago, September 9th, 1996, this show launched.
The adventure continues on the next.
Today, video cameras are everywhere. We bring you the pictures they've captured. Sometimes it's serious, sometimes it's funny, but it's always real TV. An oil tank fire. They thought they had it under control, but then it flares up again.
Move back, move back, move back.
Firefighters come to the rescue of one of their own. And hamming it up at the annual hog calling contest. Whatever you do, don't blink. Real TV is on the air.
Hi, I'm John Daly, back with another half hour of great tape.
Wow. Wow.
Guys, this is the Daily Fish Special, Real TV, 25 years ago, and what it means today. Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Snyder, a.k.a. Fish, here along with my partner, John Daly, who is the host of Real TV. And, John, I came up with the idea for this show because of all the great stories we discussed, and you said there are tons more.
Well, not only a lot of good stories, but relevant to TV today in the 21st century, even the new media. I mean, YouTube right now is really what Real TV was. So, Fish, when you came up with this idea, I knew who to bring on. So we have three of the people who were part of the great team that made Real TV happen. And they are here to reminisce with us and also to make fun of me. And here they are. First of all, driving in a car there is John Johnston, also known as JJ, who's a correspondent and senior producer at Real TV. He's been on Daily Fish before, telling us about encounters with Mickey Mantle and Muhammad Ali. He is a veteran TV broadcaster and producer. He was a correspondent on Current Affair. He also launched the first Jim Rome show on Fox Sports. JJ is also our foremost authority on the San Francisco Giants. Also with us is Michael Horowitz, the other senior producer on Real TV. He's known for producing the Tom Snyder Show. He's currently working on the reality show DEA All Access. Michael is our go-to guy with the Dodgers. And Matt Gavin was a producer-writer on Real TV. His company right now, Street Smart Entertainment, has worked on numerous shows such as the Disney Channel's Mickey Mouse Club and America's Funniest People. He's also from New York, so he is a big Yankee fan, hoping that his football Giants will finally win another Super Bowl. Guys, welcome.
Hey, John.
Good to see you. It's Big D. Yeah.
Good to see you. That was extraordinary seeing that clip. And the first thing that came to mind was Bo Weaver's voice, the announcer. Bo set the tone, grabbed you from the start, and it was just an extraordinary ride. From the moment that VO hit to the closing credits, that's what Real TV was all about. All that energy. Outstanding.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, I want to start with you. Take us through the audition process. Tell us if someone else you had in mind, or did John just crush it in the first couple auditions and you knew he was the guy right away?
Well, there were many people. And there were I guess the biggest thing was they were looking for a host who would stay out of the way of the video. Somebody whose personality would not become overbearing and get in the way of the storytelling. So there were a couple. There was Robin Sewell, who was an anchor, the Guard Swanson guy in Seattle, who I've kept in touch with all of them. The audition process was a lot of fun, actually. We got to know each of the candidates, and it was determined that John Daly would just be the nicest guy. He might actually appeal to some of the women, because this was a guy show. This was a testosterone show in a world where women ruled the dial. So they thought that chicks would dig him, and his personality would stay out of the way and enhance the video rather than compete with the video. And that's how he got the gig.
Well, the
First
show
of all,
wasn't produced.
let me just jump in here. John didn't have any personality. That's why we knew he was the right guy. And what he won the whole thing with is when a polar bear attacked a lady and pulled her through and started chomping on her leg at the zoo, John's reaction was human sushi. So that's what set the tone for the show. That's awesome. Our guy right there.
Well, I was reading up on the show, and a lot of forecasters says it wasn't predicted to make one season. And, you know, you guys hit 4 million viewers and lasted forward, John. Talk about that. Talk about the success and how it built its momentum.
Well,
Matt?
In those days, the show was just about real estate. They were looking. It was Paramount. They had 2 shows. They had Hard Copy and they had Entertainment Tonight, and those were very successful shows. And they were looking to leverage those so that when stations, when their contract was up, they'd say, "If you want to keep Entertainment Tonight, you got to take this other show, Real TV. If you want to keep Hard Copy, you got to take this other show." So that was the play, was to hook us up with one of the 2 shows that they already had out there. So they were looking for something that could play together with them as a companion show, one that would complement Hard Copy and one that would complement Entertainment Tonight, or for those stations who already had both, something that could play in the late evening or in the afternoon. And how this started was we were part of this Hard Copy Caught on Tape segment, and there was this guy, the guy in shorts, I know Matt Gavin remembers him, Robert Falk, who was the guy who did all the promos for Entertainment Tonight and for Hard Copy, and he said, just take that Caught on Tape segment and turn it into a half hour, and that's how we were born, basically as a leverage play with those other 2 shows.
To build on what Michael said for a moment, that's a common way to sell shows in syndication. That's actually how Oprah Winfrey's talk show launched, on the tails of Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. But what was interesting about Real TV is that Real TV should still be on the air today. For the reasons that it was created, and with some of the geniuses, let's just say, that spotted it at the executive level and put it on, those were some of the same short-sightedness that actually turned it into something that became something that lost its brand. I mean, the reality is that I had the privilege of working with a show called America's Funniest People, which was an offshoot of America's Funniest Home Videos. America's Funniest Home Videos and Real TV were very much akin to each other. One was comedy-based, one was reality-based. America's Funniest Home Videos just finished its 29th season. And in actuality, if again, the powers that be at Paramount Syndication would have had the visions, the show would have been on the air today, and you might have seen a very different landscape with the way media is consumed on YouTube and all of these offshoots of what Real TV really started.
So, Matt, also talk about the fact that the show couldn't still be on in reruns because we actually paid the viewers to send in their videos, and those licenses probably lapsed, right?
Well, it's interesting. Look, Real TV was, I could point to 4 or 5 moments in my career that really just were outstanding moments of pivotal moments of family and friendship. The staff on Real TV was stellar. The research and clearance department alone, which sort of fell under the auspices of Cherry Brownlee as one of the co-executive producers to manage, but had certain people on it, like the Greg Fines of the world, Steve Kozaks, the Paul, all the people that dug for the videos. They started to write agreements where Paramount owned that video in perpetuity. In fact, they were buying out the video for the life of the video. And in many ways, that video could have been sustained. Look, there was one point where Paramount's genius, they were earning revenue off of the shows in 5 different ways. There were 5 offshoots of Real TV, but never really positioned in a way that could have gone further. But I do want to say, and I don't want to monopolize, but Michael, JJ, the late Danny Tobias, Ron Vandor, Cherry Brownlee, I was so privileged to be part of this crew and learn so much from each of these people. From JJ taught me how to write, be a better writer. Michael taught me about tenacity and news judgment. Danny was also a phenomenal writer. And it really was just a magical time and a great show that hopefully entertained and should still be.
JJ, when did you know it was a success? Did you know 2 episodes in? Did the network say we got a hit on our hands, or we just knew it from the get-go?
Well, I think that what separated Real TV clip and turn it into a 5-minute story, because we didn't just use the entertainment value of it. We told you the story of the people behind it. And whenever you can make something like that happen, or something like that will happen, relatable to the rest of the audience, where they can see themselves in that moment or that predicament in our show, and feel like I connected in some way, and you saw not only the sensationalism of it, but the humanity of it. I think that's what really separated Real TV. And, you know, I mean, I will say this. I think that John used, you know, his professionalism, his news judgment, his delivery to not over sensationalize things, but make it feel like they were actually learning something in the process of watching this video. And you know, for whatever you want to give Ron Van Doer and Cherry Brownlee, the executive producers of the show, they did a great job assembling a team of people that they knew would, because Michael isn't the same as I am. I'm not the same as he is by any means. Michael's a very, you know, he lets the facts get in the way of a good story, and I never had that problem. So it was a great mix of people too. I mean, we had, Michael, you remember your number one person outside of your office used to be an aide for Clinton. She was an intern. Her name wasn't Monica Lewinsky, but now she's turned her company into a $1 billion brown company. I mean, we just have really different people from different backgrounds that meshed very well to make the most out of the show that we had.
You're talking Natalie McCullough.
That's right. Another thing about Michael had a really difficult job in the sense he would be responsible for the tissue or the writing of all the continuity in the show between the segments, and really responsible mainly for John's writing, in studio writing. And, you know, he would always be, it would be very hard for Michael sometimes because he would need real estate from the stories in order to create a tag, let's just say, or something for John to say coming out of the stories. Now, I'll tell you now, all these years later, that it was a concentrated effort by all the writer-producers to deliberately include every possible fact in the story so that Michael would have no facts by which to give John, which made Michael so crazy that he would scream. And it got so that he started cutting off the stories of our last paragraphs just so that he could have something to give John. He would dip out of the story early and put it in John's mouth. So, Michael,
I had no
it in for you from the start.
I mean, I don't mean to interrupt this circle jerk, but the fact of the matter is that we had, by definition, the job was easier than it was for other shows because the video had to be there. There had to be an amazing moment caught on tape, the so-called money shot, before we would even consider putting it on TV. So you knew we were dealing with the cream of the crop. When JJ talks about taking 4 seconds worth of video and turning it into 4 minutes,
absolutely,
that's Matt Gavin saying, you know, if you look on the upper left-hand corner, you can see X, Y, and Z. Now let's stop the video and look at the upper right-hand corner, and you see this, this, and this. So we would basically show the same 4 seconds over and over and over again, but pointing out different ways, and we call that peeling the onion.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go into a classroom and teach this theory because we defined it, and the natural sound and the reunion between the rescuee and the rescuer and all that stuff. So this was, it was like a muscle. It was easier at the end than it was in the beginning because we were exercising the muscle. Our issue was, and this was my biggest pressure, was getting the female audience. It was a show that was filled with testosterone. There were 4 white guys right here who worked on the show. That didn't help. So we tried to do funny wedding videos and funny stories that would appeal, or emotional stories that would appeal to females. And in reality, this show should have continued on cable, where it would have had another 10 years of wonderful, wonderful storytelling. But the comedy angle that Matt talks about in America's Funniest Home Videos, we tried, and occasionally we succeeded, but not with any consistency.
Well, I just to add into that, I think the show evolved. I think we did find segments where we would call them shorties or pacers, that they were packaged together in 3 spots. The show continued to evolve, and I think that was one of the strong suits. And something to the point that JJ and Michael both made earlier, we had such a unique style in the way that we told stories that it actually affected the news departments of the affiliates that Real TV appeared on. They even had writers on a couple of occasions. I remember this, guys, tell me if I'm wrong, come and observe what we were doing to try to copy that aggressive style, if you will, or the sort of in-your-face step on the video. And that's a tremendous testament, by the way, to Scott Silvey and the guys in sound design, the fantastic editors, guys, getting these names. We're talking Peter Dunn, Dave Cannon, Robbie Paramore, forgetting names I should be remember, under Marco Joseph. Those editors were stellar. They pressed the envelope with effects that didn't necessarily get in the way, but enhanced, as John said, sometimes a 4-second clip or a 10-second clip that had to be written into a 2 or 3 minute story.
All right, this is the Daily Fish Special, Real TV 25 years ago. We were talking to John Johnston, senior producer and correspondent on Real TV, Michael Horowitz, another senior producer, and segment producer, Matt Gavin. Matt, you kind of touched on something there, because when Fish asked about when did you know this was a hit, I would say it was about a month into the show, and I had a friend of mine who was the news anchor in Hartford, Connecticut, where I used to work. He called me up and he goes, "You guys must be going through the roof. What are you talking about?" He goes, "The news feed that comes down from the network, it's all it's got is Real TV stuff on it now." And he says, "I've never seen that until your show actually started going on the air." So you guys have actually changed, like you were saying, changing the way news was. And I can also remember Julie Fowler, who did my wardrobe. And I remember her saying to me about a month or 2 into this, and she goes, "I don't think you realize how lucky you are." I go, "What do you mean?" She says, "No one walks into a show for the first time. To have a show get off the ground and to have a group of people assembled together who not only like each other, who work hard and have fun together." And I was like, okay, I am very lucky. So I definitely saw that. Do you guys see the same thing? Did you guys have any aha moments?
Well, I think I want to just add to what Matt was saying, because I thought that we were a terrible influence on the local news. If you sit and watch the 11 o'clock news tonight, it's 10 seconds of, this murder caught on tape, wipe, 10 seconds of that mugging caught on. I mean, the 11 o'clock news on Channel 7 in New York City tonight, which I used to be the producer of, there's 6-7 stories in a row of murders, robberies, things caught on tape that last 12, 15 seconds, then they wipe to the next one, and then they wipe to the next one, and I have no idea. And then they do a follow-up to one that was yesterday, and I have no idea. And the anchors who are reading them can't tell the difference, because it's the same grainy surveillance footage. And you become so inured to the terrible violence, and you become desensitized, and there's no storytelling. There's a little old lady who got mugged. Who is that lady? We would have sent a crew and we would have told the story about the little old Jewish lady coming home from synagogue or something like that. And we told stories. And in the news these days, there just is a rush to get the video on the air with zero context, zero storytelling. Now, as far as whether we were a success, I never thought there were success. I kept collecting boxes in my office so that when the moving day came to get another job, I had boxes that were folded up neatly. I thought for briefly we got an upgrade to the great Channel 2 in New York. We were on at 7 or 7:30. for a season or two, and I thought, okay, that was very interesting. But I was too susceptible and too easily influenced by the criticism and not having enough female viewers, and they were always concerned that we were going to run out of video. When the truth was, the FedEx guy came with a basket, then he came with a hand truck of videos, then he had to park the truck in front of the front door. But I was too focused on the negative feedback, and there's always negative feedback, to ever have appreciated how much we were changing the landscape. I think briefly, I'll shut up in a second, but briefly when the Stacy Keach show came, America's Funniest Home Videos, which I worked on briefly, and there were some other shows that tried to copy us. That, as they say, imitation is the sincerest form of television. That was fun, but I never appreciated any form of success because we were too busy feeding the beast.
Right. Hey, Matt, I'll take this one, Matt. Do you think that YouTube is a child of shows like Real TV?
You know, I think, look, I have a daughter. It's so funny you talk about family. We saw weddings, births, affairs, divorces at Real TV. My wedding, I think, was between season 3 and 4. My oldest daughter is turning 20 next week, and my youngest is turning 18. So the passage of time. But if you look at the way today's social media is, Michael talks about, you know, the news in many ways. And I hate to say this because my degree was in broadcast journalism. Michael's career was in broadcast journalism. I mean, Michael broke the John Lennon assassination with WABC as a young news operative in New York. JJ out of Sacramento and the current affair and everything he did. But I think local news is dangling by a thread these days. Storytelling doesn't even work anymore. Now, between TikTok and Snap and Instagram, I mean, the way that these Real TV moments are consumed are so fast. In fact, my daughter, we were watching the Today Show this morning, and she said, "Oh, look, they're doing a viral video that was 4 days older," because even they're so far behind the times in the way that this stuff is consumed. But I don't know, John. I think John was a really big part of again going back to the nuggets of the way the stories were written and the kernels of how to tell the tale and spin it. JJ, you were a master at motivating us to be able to do that, and I think that was
when he showed up.
Say again.
When he showed up to work.
When he showed up, and there were a lot of times where he was more concerned about the hair and how to position it than he was the script. One very quick moment, you talk about how these moments captured on tape and the stories behind them are so compelling. The first or the second script I ever turned into John, I got caught up in the moment and I handed it to him, and my first line was, "What you're about to see is indescribable." And he takes a script and he throws it back. He says, "All right, story's done." And it was one of those things where I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You said it's indescribable. How are you going to write a 3-minute piece that's indescribable?" And I said, "All right, point taken." And then I walked over to Danny Tobias and I asked for his help. And I said, "Listen, in this particular moment, there's a near miss that happens." And he almost strangled me. He says, "There's no such thing as a near miss. A near miss is a hit. There can't be a near miss." So again, moments like this and news writing like that. And then lastly, I won't talk as long as Michael did. John Daly is the consummate professional frontman. He was outstanding. He was the James Bond of this type of programming. Suave, debonair, just a really great anchor with a great feel, who, as you say, didn't get in the way of the video, as our correspondents learned as well. Sabila Vargas, Michael Brownlee on KNBC here. Sabila working still on the air in North Carolina. Great stuff, good people.
I think,
John, I got a question for you, John. Did these gentlemen give you the autonomy to change the script, or did you just go by the script, or what kind of power did you have over that?
I didn't have much power. Michael allowed me to, and what I always try to do is chop things down. and make it tighter for myself and for what I would say. I didn't change as far as meaning. I changed words. That was about it. When the show got to me, and again, we were shooting 6 shows a day. So for me to be sitting over there and trying to change his copy, which was great, was worthless. So for me,
John was the editor of Last Resort. He'd come up to me and say, "This isn't me." Not a lot, but it wasn't. The difference was, I was adapting to him and to his personality. I would write for John Daly, which is completely different than writing for Matt Gavin or writing for John Johnston. So you become. It's like we said in the beginning, 25 minutes ago. It's a muscle. So I was writing for him. So we were on the same wave. But every show needed a leader. And what we're forgetting about is that John Daly was a leader in the fact that he would give interviews. We would go on station visits. We would run to a station that was considering canceling us, and we'd go there and kiss ass like you wouldn't believe and save our asses. And so the other success of John Daly, because it's insulting to say, really, not get in the way of the video, although that takes a great talent. But the other things that we did, flying all night to go save a situation in the station, you can't be left out.
And we did, and you're right about that, Michael. We did do a lot of traveling, and I got to play a lot of golf, which was even better about it. So, but
you showed up with Yankees tickets in Boston. That was a very impressive night.
We did do that. That's right. And you had to sit with Red Sox fans, and you were annoying too. And you lived. You survived it, which was great. One of the interesting things, and I just thought about this, and I don't know who came up with this. I don't know if this was you, Michael, or JJ. Once we got into, I think it was towards the end of the first season, you wouldn't let me see the videos. So in other words, I might have voiced over a segment, but I wasn't allowed to see the video because you wanted me to come out of the video and react to it. Whose idea was that?
It wasn't either Michael or myself. It was one of the great people I've worked with in my life, Peter Brennan, who I worked with under A Current Affair, and he did that. And that became part of the success of A Current Affair, is that Maury would never see the videos as the original host. And then that way he would come out and he would react to it. So what you're doing is you're not staging something, you're giving people a genuine reaction, and it helps them relate to you because they're feeling the same thing. I remember doing a story for A Current Affair, and I purposely, it was about physicians doing plastic surgery on inmates down in Texas. And I never let the woman who was being, worked on, talk on camera. And at the very end, I finally let her say something on camera. And the reason I didn't let her say, she was beautiful, but the minute she opened her mouth, she had 3 teeth in her head. And so Maury's reaction was, plastic surgeon, get the poor woman the dentist. And it was something that the audience was thinking too when they saw it. And that kind of thing makes you infinitely relatable to the people you're talking to. And the thing that he always taught me is the host is not a representative of the show. The host is a representative of the audience. And the audience wants to be able to feel like you're their champion. And that was something that I will carry with me as long as I'm in television. And that comes from Peter Brennan.
But JJ's pieces on A Current Affair, nobody ever got to see them because they were always so late that nobody had a chance to see them. It was a surprise to all of us.
I think one of the great abilities that both Michael and John had was allowing the team of writer producers to sort of express themselves. Michael talked about this briefly a moment ago, talking about how there were so many different voices, if you will, or so many different personalities that took to the video. And I'm not quite sure, I guess, John, JJ, this may be more you. When you assign stories, and sometimes there were some of us writing 8 or 9 a week, would you do it based on what video you thought was right for the individual producer, or did you throw it to us to sometimes have us out of the box and write something that was a little fish out of water for us? How did you do that? I forget.
JJ's having some technical difficulties.
John's frozen. Michael, do you remember?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was a Matt Gavin story right there. That's a Jerry Peluso story. That it screamed for your expertise, and there was really no need to challenge anybody because everybody was just trying to get through the week, trying to get through the assignment. That there was no need. At one point, they talked about switching people's roles, and I said to Vander, I used the muscle analogy. Just play to people's strengths. Let's just get this over with. But when I worked at Tom Snyder, I'll never forget, somebody had booked Dale Earnhardt, the race car driver, and I took the card with his name on it. I took it off the board. I said, kill this booking because Snyder doesn't like he can't stand race car driving. It's not his. And Tom overheard me in the other room, and he came in and goes, no. Everybody gets one. If everybody gets one, and this producer gets one, and that producer gets one, then we will have covered everybody in the audience, and we will have made everybody happy. And everybody gets one became another mantra on the show, because I might not like car chases. I do like car chases, but for the sake of this, I might not like car chases, but somebody else might. So there's a car chase, a wedding video, a rescue, and we made sure that every single broadcast checked off all the boxes, and we put them in the teasers and the promos so that hopefully we had something for everybody. And that worked.
And Fish and Fish and John, I just want to say one thing too. As Michael was talking, I'm reminded of, again, the video was really the star of the show. And you cannot underestimate the talent and the ability of the research staff who found this tape. I mean, it was not easy because we were sort of the only show on the block at the time. I remember I had suggested, and this fell on deaf ears by a Paramount executive, but I had suggested that we do themed shows, Real TV Chases, Real TV Animals, Real TV rescues. And the answer that I got back, and it might have been true or not true, was that, well, it's going to dilute the brand and that will shorten the life of the brand. When in actuality, the exact opposite happened, because there became a void where we started doing things. And then shortly after we started doing them, Fox came out with When Animals Attack, which revolutionized the career of three people, I can tell you in specific, gave birth to the shows that you see now, Bachelor and Bachelorette and all of that. But those shows played right out of our blueprint. And again, this speaks to this is the horror of television. You have creative people who create shows, write shows, give birth to these shows, but are ultimately left in the hands of executives who may not necessarily have the vision to take it to the next level. And therein lies the tragedy. I mean,
I mean, we were all part of this. We were all in the meetings. They were just too scared to break with the format. And this was a Paramount. This is what they did. We tried forever to do other kinds of theme shows and all like that. But if you look at Entertainment Tonight, it was the same thing every single, and what was the phrase that Larry Forsdick, the suit on the show, said? We're looking for lightning in a bottle. He would say that every day in the control room. And you see, one example comes out when Marie Osmond was on Dancing with the Stars, and E.T. hired Donny Osmond to cover Marie. And then Donnie was on, and then they had hired Marie, and it kept going and going and going to the point where Donnie and Marie became correspondents on the show because it got a little bit of a rating. And then it got to the end where Mary Hart went on vacation, and Donnie and Marie hosted Entertainment Tonight, but they were afraid to stray away. And that's the only time there was ever any kind of creativity, is like, what can we do more within this tight a lane that we have for ourselves. But that was paranoia over losing a rating. It was paranoia more than it was lack of creativity.
Oh, paranoia and Paramount, unfortunately, killed a, if you will.
Letters.
Yeah, I mean, look, we did 100. I think it was 195 episodes per season.
208. 208.
208 for 4 years straight. Season 5, we really don't look at that seriously, or 6. Who even knows? I think it went 5 and a quarter. But those 4 were extraordinary. They'll never repeat because of residuals, but they're extraordinary.
We got a little residuals.
Yeah.
But I think we left a legacy. John Daly left a legacy. Matt Gavin left a legacy. JJ left a legacy of things that were just a piece of videotape. It was just a piece of video. And to some local news producer right now, it's still just a piece of video that you tease. But behind every piece of video is an extraordinary story.
Great story.
And we figured out a way to acquire the story, to do the interviews, and you could see the same story be done by another show, but they would talk. This with us, it was the video. How was the video captured? Where was the camera? Whose camera was it? How much danger did they go through to get the video? And the video was when JJ, who's not here, said. Usually JJ's not here. We said that the star was the video. We made it the star, and when there was a lack of a story, the video and how it was captured and when it was captured and what it captured became the story. There's an interesting angle. Not something. If you work on a 2020, you wouldn't do it that way. But we had a blueprint, and we knew what to do. You could sit down in that office tonight and go right back to work and teach new kids to do it because we knew what needed to be done.
In a second.
And then finally, I'm going to finish by saying there was always the writers always had this idea of, I want to do it different. And then we had to remind them, and it was painful because you're natural as an artist and as a writer, as a craftsperson, is to let's see if we can do something different. And our bosses would always say, don't try to do it different. You're writing 8 stories a day. The average viewer is watching 1 time a week. If you could get the average viewer to watch twice a week, you'd be driving a Cadillac. And they just do it the same way. Give them what they want. And that was a struggle every day for guys like Matt over here, because naturally creative people want to do naturally different things.
But we did have the chance to Michael's point, though. There was no greater joy than walking into an edit bay, picking your editor and saying, look, I have an idea where I want to be able to tell the story this way, but I need a visual that's going to be able to complement it. There were stories that I can tell you right now, and I mentioned, I've already mentioned the guys, but the editors, it was such a pleasure to create these visual fabrics or tableaus to take what you thought and just not necessarily just picking the video off the bone to the point of doing it just for the sake of doing it over and over again, but really finding the nuance and different ways to sort of exploit, as Michael talked about, zooming to a section, pulling back. In fact, there was one story that I wrote, and I remember this. It was a story about a guy who was tooling through the hills of Ireland in a car, and he had a video camera, dashboard mounted camera, and he literally got into an accident while it happened. And then you hear him talking through the story and thinking about contemplating his own death potentially while he was waiting for rescues to come. So I wrote the story, very suspenseful. Is he alive? Is he not? And then finally we reveal him at the end and did the video. And he happens to be a local here who owns a sound company. So fast forward, this is about 4 years ago or 3 years ago. I'm driving my older daughter to a cappella concert for high school. And there are a bunch of girls in the back, and they're talking a little bit. And somehow they got fascinated by something that was on social media. And this girl starts telling the story about her dad, who was he was driving a car on the hills of Ireland, and he got into an accident. They featured it on some TV show. And I'm kind of listening and saying, wait a second. Is your dad John? And I mentioned last time, she goes, yeah. And I said, well, I wrote that story. I read the story on Real TV. It was all worlds colliding. It was the strangest thing. But look.
Yeah, I have that. That happens too. I've done stories about weather chasers and stuff. Like, yeah, I did that story. But I think, could we do this show again? we could.
In a
We'd have to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. We'd have to have a 4 o'clock meeting. We'd have to get the interviews shot by Zoom because our number one competition would be, the phone.
Yeah.
Because by the time we got on the air, everybody will have seen it. So we'd have to give them some added stuff, added bonuses to make them watch the show.
Added value.
And we did, and we could again.
But you just said it. You said it. The phone is simply the research meeting. That's the meeting where the video is brought. Still, real TV, real life moments captured on tape, and the story behind it. That was, in that one sentence, it said it all. And it was a great formula.
And we could do it again, but you couldn't hold it. Today's show would be videos that were shot yesterday.
Yep. You put John Daly on camera. You sell it down in the Florida market. It's a hit.
I mean, there's a guy there's the Scripps people. I did some consulting for them. It's called, what is it? Up to the minute, right this very minute, whatever.
Yeah.
They shoot it in a warehouse outside Phoenix, Arizona, and it's a bunch of kids in front of a laptop, and they're showing videos up to the minute, and they basically shoot it an hour ahead of time. We could do it, and John, you'd be great at it because because it would require a lot of ad-libbing. It would require a lot of Zoom calls, instant. It would be a newscast the way they ought to do the 11 o'clock news. Yeah. So if a little old lady got rescued by a firefighter, you'd have to have the little old lady and the firefighter and the cops and whatever, and you'd have to crash it day of air. We could do it.
Yeah, John.
Could be done.
We should talk about doing it. We've got so many stories here that we haven't even touched on. We've got about maybe about 4 or 5 minutes left. Unfortunately, JJ's not with us here, but
why am I not surprised?
This is what went on all the time. Talk about a video that never made it to air. I always remember the video we got that was allegedly of another view of the JFK assassination. Do you guys remember? And of course, I don't think it turned out to be anything. Were there any videos that you remember that never got on the air that either should have, or videos that shouldn't have got on the air that we didn't put on?
Very, very distinctly, and I don't remember his name. It'll come to me 5 minutes after we're off the air. But it was the manager of the Kansas City Royals, nice African-American man. I can see his face. And
Hal McRae.
Hal McRae. There you go. Hal McRae had a bad night. And
I remember that. Yeah.
He this was worse than Dave Kingman and Tommy Lasorda, which was audio only. And Hal McRae started throwing things, and he had a bad temper. And I was in the research meeting, and everybody loved it. My bosses loved it. And I said, come on, it's Hal McRae. And he had one bad day. You're going to judge him by his worst moment. And he had a temper tantrum. And it wasn't one of those fake temper tantrums that a coach sometimes throws to inspire. There was no Ted Lasso here. This was bad. And I said, I just don't see this. I'm not having a good time watching this. And I think I'm very close to the viewer. Nobody at home is going to watch this. And that was the one for me. Hopefully I've vamped enough so that Matt Gavin can have his example.
I tell you, there were a lot of videos. We walked a fine line sometimes of snuff stuff.
Oh, that's right.
We suppressed a lot of things where we saw things that you can't unsee. Mm-hmm. And there was a fine line with news judgment as opposed to just shocking and not. And in actuality, people who tried to sell us videos went out and had they created a brand of those videotapes or VHSs at the time, and they made a living of that. And then, we had peddlers who would come through with a variety of different, in fact, I remember this. Do you guys remember that Tiffany Haddish used to work with us? She worked as she used to either view video or she peddled a couple of shots. She was in our newsroom as part of the staff, I think, or the extended research staff for a while too. But yeah, so
I did not know that.
There were really there was temptation to do that. I mean, when you walked into the newsroom, you would see a bank of literally 11 monitors a lot of which ended up in my Super Bowl parties. But that would be showing car chases. And when there was a car chase, it was must-see TV. We gathered around because we knew that we would be writing that story, talking to Larry Welk, the helicopter pilot, or, everybody was looking for the angle. We were all vying to see who was going to write it too.
And sometimes when there was a breaking news, like the North Hollywood shooting, we sent people out, go get the video rather than waiting months for it to make its way here. Go spend money, get the exclusive here. But you could tell if a video was staged.
Oh, always.
Maybe not me, but you show it to somebody else and you say, "Oh my God, that's clearly staged." You'd point to something, and we had a very good radar for stuff that wasn't real.
Yep.
And nothing made it on the air that we suspected wasn't real. I wasn't going to. I didn't include that in my assessment. I just remember that Hal McRae stuff. But yeah, it was a great day when there was a car chase in Los Angeles, because it was the only time you could stop.
And the North Hollywood Bank story, I remember that. I think Heidi wrote that, Heidi Damon, and it was just a really good, well-written story, well told. It wasn't a special; it was a long one, but I think because it required, there were so many different angles and so much to see. In some cases, some of these clips could have been an entire show based on our storytelling and the way that it was handled by the writers and producers. So, Fish, you're running out of time.
We could have made a half hour out of it, but nobody wanted to. No. That was not received well.
Again, great moment in time, great staff, great people. In fact, there's a Facebook group of people that 38 or 40 of them are still there. Everyone is pretty much still family on this show. We look back on it, and I know I cherish the times of working with these two gentlemen, and much less JJ. But and again, Danny Tobias, big guy, big force. Sorry to see him gone.
But it was never fun in the moment for me. I can't speak for others. There was just too much 9 shows a week. We started as 9 shows a week, and I was always worried that I was going to be the one who was going to be the roadblock. So on Sunday night, I came in and wrote scripts so that very quietly, nobody knew. I didn't want anybody to know that I was that insecure, but I worked Sunday nights to get ready, and there was too much writing on it for me to enjoy it in the moment. And there was always this. I had friends who were rooting for us to die.
I don't know. I felt the other way. I didn't mind leaving at 2 a.m. sometimes. We would play poker on Thursday nights in the conference room while stories were rendering in the back. It was really, you have to cherish. I was trained by people in this business that always said, back then they said, cherish the amount of time you can get, because there are only 4 channels out there. Now there are literally 500 channels, but I still believe in that. I mean, if you have a moment in time to grab onto a show and never let it go and just take that ride, then you're lucky. And
about once a month, there'd be an editor who I'd bump into in the men's room or in the lunchroom, and he'd say, I got this going, and I'm going to be ready around 9, 10 o'clock, and I want you to come back. Here's this editor, this kid is telling me to come back. So I would, like a schmuck, I would come back after the Dodger game and swing by, sometimes with Danny, and this young editor would want and couldn't wait to show the managers what it was he or she was working on, and to see the look on his or her face when we walked in at 10 o'clock at night, because he wanted to show us what he was working on. I just made this kid's night.
Wow.
And Dave Cannon and all right, this was a bigger deal than I was just too upset. Because I was always afraid I was going to let them down.
Forget your ranks for a moment. Think about how easy it would be to watch that in the stands now. All you got to do is, all right, send me the link on my phone and I'll check. I like the edit. You can do it before the inning's over. It'd be perfect.
There you go.
Last, John.
Guys, unfortunately, we got to wrap, but I want to do a toast to you guys. I want to do a toast to Danny Tobias, who we lost, and anybody else from the Real TV family. And this is our drink of the week is actually the Tarita. which
Stacy
is the
Weiser.
drink that I created on behalf of my wife, named after my wife. Special ingredient is the apricot brandy that's in there. And everybody tells me the reason I stayed on Real TV was because I made this for the rap parties. And that's how I got to stay on the show.
And by the way, how lucky are you to have Terry as your wife?
Exactly.
I mean, the luckiest man in show business for so many reasons.
I got one last question before we wrap. Is this the same Jerry Peluso that managed the Fab Four?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he dated my sister in the 80s. I mean, that was a small world. Talk about a schmuck. Jesus.
Jerry was in my wedding party, and now there's a search party out for Jerry. But
I saw him last year at Whole Foods in Sherman Oaks. I grew up with Jerry.
Was he working there?
No.
No. Jerry was one of, again, you want to talk about lifeblood of writer producer. Jerry was outstanding. He was the prince of the puns, so gregarious, a really talented guy, editor, writer, from the current affair world.
He was the sports producer at Channel 7 Eyewitness News in the 80s.
In Jersey.
In New York. And the best sports producer I ever witnessed.
Yeah.
I ever saw work. Yes, I saw him in the parking lot in Whole Foods last year where he had $1 million scheme to sell Mike Pence COVID-19 tests.
Yeah. Listen, God bless.
The last thing I want to say, guys, is thank you for doing this. But if we do get a reboot of Real TV, maybe we could do a duo with Ahmad Rashad and John on the same set.
Yeah, I'm not going to do
that.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot for doing this. We appreciate
Thanks for having us.
Hey, this is a Daily Fish special, Real TV 25 years ago. We've been talking to John Johnson, former correspondent on Current Affair, TV producer. Unfortunately, we lost him for a little bit there because of technical difficulties. Also, senior producer.
It's not unfortunate.
Michael Horowitz, known for producing the Tom Snyder Show. He's also currently working on the reality show DEA All Access. And Matt Gavin, a segment producer. His company, Street Smart Entertainment, has worked on numerous shows such as the Disney Channel's Mickey Mouse Club and America's Funniest People. Guys, thank you again. We'll be in touch. Make it happen. All right. Super. Fish, that was fun, huh?
Yeah. And guess what? We get to do this again. We're
do
coming
get
right
to do
back
it
at
again.
you.
Absolutely. We're going to do another show in a little bit. We're going to launch it. Hopefully, we're going to hit it at 8 p.m. Eastern. Might be a little bit later, but remember, Daily Fish is live from Vegas and Myrtle Beach. Catch us on Facebook at daily.fish.5, DBNA Television on Roku, Amazon Fire, and soon Apple TV. The DBNA Television website is dbnatelevision.com, and you can see us on YouTube. All right, Fish, I'll see you in a little bit, buddy.